Tonight, President Trump's immigration crackdown, the raids across the country. Tonight, the images from across the nation, from Chicago to Denver to Miami. Undocumented immigrants loaded onto military planes as well. President Trump and the president of Colombia both threatening tariffs for a time over flights headed to Colombia. And tonight, what's now coming next? What ICE officials told our Rachel Scott. Also tonight, President Trump expected to sign new executive actions involving the U.S. military. And the new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. And he's asked, will he fire America's top general as he suggested before? How he answered with the general right there. We're tracking a powerful cross-country storm tonight after rain in California, now hail and damaging winds coming to Texas, and then the storms hitting the east. Ginger Z with the forecast. Tonight, the sudden turmoil in the stock market after that news from China today. Is China ahead of the U.S. on artificial intelligence, costing less, fewer chips, less energy? Tonight, the U.S. company NVIDIA suffering the largest single-day drop ever. Here in the U.S., an earthquake rattling parts of the Northeast, and you'll see the images tonight. Also, the rare strain of bird flu now discovered here in the country where it's been detected, with egg prices already skyrocketing. Tonight, 5 years after we went back to Auschwitz, the survivors, now fewer and fewer of them, and what they told us tonight. And the Super Bowl is now set, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and getting ready already. The images tonight you likely haven't seen.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Monday night. We do begin tonight with President Trump's immigration crackdown. Agents conducting what they have called targeted operations across this country. Nearly 1,000 arrests in 24 hours. Multiple law enforcement agencies taking part in the raids. The scenes tonight from Chicago to Atlanta, from Denver to Los Angeles. And U.S. military aircraft is being used to deport migrants. Another plane tonight has just landed in Guatemala. Colombia turning 2 planes away for a time. President Trump immediately threatening to impose a 25% tariff. Colombia's president then threatening a tariff right back, eventually backing down. ABC senior political correspondent Rachel Scott and what ICE officials told her just today about what's coming next. Rachel leading us off tonight from Florida.
Tonight, in cities across the country, a surge in immigration raids like this one in Chicago. Agents pulling a man from a home.
It was your car, right?
Walking him out to their waiting vehicles. Part of a 24-hour nationwide roundup, the Trump administration says arrested 956 undocumented immigrants, the highest daily number since Trump was sworn in. Border Czar Tom Homan in Chicago to supervise the operation there, but the sweeps from coast to coast. In Denver, agents raiding a nightclub, detaining around 50 people. A bus driving them away. The DEA says they were associated with the violent Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. These are the images the administration wants out there, hoping to convince undocumented migrants to self-deport and others not to come in the first place. Here in Miami, Homeland Security posting these photos, agents leading people away in handcuffs.
There's a more robust posture out there. We're making more arrests. We're doing, like I said, what the law intends that we do, and we are doing it, but just more on a like I said, in a more overt presence.
The local ICE field director says they're targeting violent offenders, but they're not stopping there.
Are other undocumented immigrants off the table right now?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily they're off the table. That's kind of on a case-by-case basis. We make a discretionary call on every case that we arrest, whether that's a criminal or not a criminal, but we're going to take an enforcement action on every individual.
What does the next stage look like?
The next stage is going to be, again, we're still going to go after the worst first, but as we go through those lists, individuals primarily with final orders of removal, perhaps that don't have criminal records, I would say those would be the next priorities that we'll go after, and eventually we'll see where that leads us to.
In some communities where undocumented immigrants work and pay taxes, a sense of fear setting in.
We are here to address the fear. No one should be afraid to go to work. No child should be afraid to go to school.
This as military jets flying migrants out of the United States. Another C-17 heading to Guatemala tonight. Over the weekend, the government of Colombia refusing to allow 2 American military planes carrying migrants to land. President Trump threatening to impose heavy tariffs on Colombian imports, which would have spiked prices at the grocery store on coffee and other products. Colombia fired back, threatening to slap tariffs on American goods. But before long, they backed down. agreeing to accept the deportation flights.
We've made it clear to every country that they will be taking back our people, and if they don't, they'll pay a very high economic price.
Tonight, south of the border, Mexican authorities preparing for an influx of deportees. Drone footage showing massive tent shelters now under construction.
All right, so let's get right to Rachel Scott, who's with us live tonight from Florida. Tonight, Rachel, the administration making it very clear this is a massive multi-agency effort. What did ICE officials tell you today about what's still coming?
Well, David, ICE officials say they are targeting the most violent criminals first, but after that, they say no one who is in the country illegally is off the table. And it is not just ICE. They are getting resources from every corner of the federal government, all with the goal of helping President Donald Trump achieve his campaign promise of mass deportations. Those officials telling me tonight, expect these operations to start ramping up, David.
Rachel Scott leading us off here tonight. Rachel, thank you. Now to the Pentagon and sweeping changes coming. President Trump moving quickly, expected to sign several new executive actions, one calling for an Iron Dome missile defense system for the U.S., similar to what Israel has. And it comes as newly confirmed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth arrives at the Pentagon for the first time, greeted by America's top general. Secretary Hegseth was asked, with the general standing right there, will he fire him, as Hegseth has suggested. Here's Jonathan Karl tonight.
Newly minted Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth arrived at the Pentagon today after a squeaker of a confirmation vote. The Senate split 50-50, Vice President J.D. Vance breaking the tie.
Good morning, everybody. How we doing? It's an honor to be here.
Hegseth's first day comes with new executive actions by President Trump. A call for what Trump dubs an Iron Dome for America, a missile defense shield similar to Israel's. It would likely cost hundreds of billions of dollars that Congress would need to approve. Another executive action calls for the military to reinstate with full back pay and benefits any service members who were terminated for refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Trump is also directing Hegseth to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and to change guidance that allowed transgender people to serve in the military. By some estimates, there are about 15,000 transgender troops now serving, about half of 1%.
The lawful orders of the President of the United States will be executed inside this Defense Department swiftly and without excuse.
The new secretary today was greeted by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, someone Hegseth has said should be fired. Writing in his book, C.Q. Brown doesn't so much care if quality individuals serve at the Air Force Academy, so long as they all look different or more like him. Today, Hegseth was asked if he still wants to fire General Brown.
Joint Chiefs of Staff and other members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Standing with him right now. Look forward to working with him.
And today, the Trump Justice Department announced that more than a dozen career prosecutors who had worked on Jack Smith, special counsel Jack Smith's investigations, were abruptly fired. These were career prosecutors, some of whom had worked for many years under both Republican and Democratic administrations. The acting attorney general said they were fired today because they could not be trusted, he said, to implement the Trump agenda. David?
John Karl live at the White House. John, thank you. Now to the U.S. economy, the U.S. stock market, and the news from China today that sent tech stocks tumbling. One U.S. company, NVIDIA, had the biggest single-day drop in history. Amid questions, is China now ahead of the U.S. on artificial intelligence? Have they found a way to do it cheaper, fewer chips, less energy? The tech-heavy NASDAQ down 600 points, a 3% drop. U.S. chipmaker NVIDIA seeing that biggest single-day loss ever. President Trump speaking on this just moments ago. And here's our chief business and economics correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, tonight.
Tonight, the biggest single-day loss for a stock ever. Shares of NVIDIA, which makes the chips used to power artificial intelligence, plunging nearly $600 billion. The sell-off triggered by the emergence of a powerful and more efficient new Chinese AI chatbot called DeepSeek. Its release, a kind of wake-up call to investors, causing them to rethink U.S. supremacy and the costs in the battle for AI dominance. DeepSeek, the app, tonight #1 in both Apple and Google's app stores, built in China, allegedly at a fraction of the cost, using far less energy than Western competitors like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, recently named to President Trump's new AI project, Stargate, warned about the technology in the wrong hands when we spoke in 2023.
This will be the greatest technology humanity has yet developed.
So in the wrong human hands, it could be a very different device.
We do worry a lot about authoritarian governments developing this.
And David, just moments ago, President Trump commenting on these new developments out of China, calling them a wake-up call to U.S. companies to compete and win. Even after today's sell-off, stocks are still up 22% over the last year. David?
Rebecca Jarvis on the economy tonight. Rebecca, thank you. Now to this rare strain of bird flu that's now been discovered here in the U.S., where it's been detected, with egg prices already skyrocketing, and new questions tonight about how quickly Americans are actually getting the information on bird flu that they need. Here's Ariel Reshef on that.
Tonight, as a fast-moving bird flu outbreak sends egg prices skyrocketing.
$14.99 for eggs?
Word, the U.S. has now detected a different, more rare strain of bird flu in California. According to a new global health alert, that farm was forced to destroy nearly 119,000 birds. Last week, a farm on New York's Long Island had to kill 100,000 ducks after an outbreak. And in Illinois, Cockadoodle Farm lost 3,000 hens in a matter of days.
We're like, oh, maybe it's environmental, or, and the next day hundreds were gone. And we're like, this is something.
Despite 67 human cases of bird flu and 1 death, there has been no confirmed person-to-person spread. Just days after Donald Trump took office, there are questions about missing updates on bird flu. Health agencies have been ordered to pause public communications until it's been reviewed and approved by a presidential appointee. Former White House COVID response coordinator Dr. Ashish Jha is urging the new administration to take bird flu seriously.
The biggest lesson from COVID is if you get on top of things early, if you do surveillance, if you do testing, it doesn't have to be disruptive. And that is what I'm worried we're going to make the same set of mistakes.
And David, multiple sources tell ABC News that a new report on bird flu was among those that was not released by the CDC last week because of that communications freeze. David?
Ariel Reshef tonight. Ariel, thank you. We're also watching a major storm system moving across the country tonight after bringing rain to California. What's coming to Texas and to the Northeast? The same system dropping up to an inch of rain on Southern California, flash flooding there, mudslides after the fires. Cars stuck on the road. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Ginger Zee back with us here on a Monday night to take us through the week ahead. Ginger?
Hey, David, Los Angeles had more rain than they've had in 9 months with that weekend rain. Now it's going to twist out of there over Arizona and New Mexico and make its way right across the country. So let's dive in. The mudslide threat doesn't end, by the way, when the rain does. You can still move land days and even weeks after. But look at that thing twist over to Thursday early morning. So it's Wednesday night through Thursday that severe storms blast through Waco, down I-35 to Austin and San Antonio. That flooding threat really into the day Thursday from just east of Dallas to Little Rock and Memphis, and then widespread rain by the weekend right here in the Northeast, where we've got some pretty significant snow deficits. David?
Ginger Zee back with us tonight. Ginger, we'll see you first thing in the morning on GMA. Thank you. Tonight, the shaky Israel-Hamas ceasefire is holding, and the striking images this evening, more than 300,000 Gazans returning to their homes in the north. The emotional moments as families are reunited, their homes flattened, and it all comes after President Trump suggested what might be done right there in Gaza. Here's our foreign correspondent, Britt Clennett, from the region tonight.
More than 300,000 Palestinians returning to northern Gaza for the first time tonight. Massive crowds and long lines walk this main highway along the sea. Families, children smiling, singing in the streets as they return to what's left of their homes. Wayal grateful to be back unharmed, even though her home is flattened and her family must now live in a tent. What happens to Gaza is still uncertain. President Trump suggesting to clean out the Gaza Strip by moving Palestinians to another country.
I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing.
Just 24 hours ago, the fragile ceasefire deal seemed to be on the brink after Israel accused Hamas of withholding a hostage. Hamas later agreeing to release 3 hostages on Thursday, on top of a scheduled hostage prisoner exchange on Saturday. Still no word on whether American Sagi Dekelchen and Keith Siegel are part of that release.
David, this ceasefire is still precarious. The IDF saying they fired on multiple positions in central Gaza after they say their soldiers came under threat. David?
Britt Clennett with us live from Jerusalem. Britt, thank you. Tonight marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And you'll remember we traveled back to Auschwitz with survivors. They were just children when when they were liberated, when they were saved. They made a life for themselves here in the U.S., children, grandchildren, and tonight some have gone back. And they've sent us a message about what they're seeing in the world, even right back home here in the U.S.
The sun rising this morning over the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. It was 80 years ago today, survivors were liberated, many of them children. And every year, fewer and fewer of them are still with us. It was 5 years ago we traveled back with survivors who made a life for themselves here in the U.S., among them Tova Friedman.
Tova.
Hi. We will never forget what Tova told us right there at Auschwitz, why she went back after 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust, more than 1 million at this camp.
That we didn't forget them. That I remember the little girl going to the crematorium, and she wouldn't come back, that I played with.
You remember them?
You know, we remember. That's what it is. We remember. I remember walking in cold.
It was Tova who wanted to go back to the crematorium. She wanted to offer a prayer that day to those who did not get to leave like she did. Tonight, she is now 86 and back in Poland. This time, world leaders listening to her story. Ukraine's President Zelensky, King Charles, all there today, as survivors, including Tova, urge the world not to forget.
We will never, never, ever allow history to repeat itself. The time is short. The task is great. We may not be able to complete it, but we have an obligation to start. Thank you.
And on this Holocaust Remembrance Day, Tova sending us this message from overseas.
You and I, David, we walked together into a crematorium that was still left. In a year from now, in 2 years from now, in 5 years from now, there'll be nobody who will have the memory, who will be a witness. So I see my role as a witness.
Telling us she is concerned over what she is seeing, the anti-Semitism here in the U.S. and around the world.
Anti-Semitism is rampant. The world has become isolated. People have become isolated from each other. And yet, the hatred has increased. Maybe we can reach the younger generation to be not so angry.
She is counting on the next generation, including her own family. It's why she felt it was important to take them in while we were there.
It's like all the way.
The world needs to know this can't happen.
The world needs to know and to beware of its evil, to stop the evil before it spreads. And this is the end of evil.
We will never forget that trip back to Auschwitz 5 years ago. And tonight, 5 years later now, Tova and the survivors urging the world not to forget. When we come back here, the other news of the night in the Northeast, there's been an earthquake, and you're going to see the images here in a moment. Also, there's news of a deadly accident on the tarmac. An airline worker struck and killed. And then later here, the showdown is set, the Chiefs and the Eagles, and what we've learned already tonight. Tonight, a rare earthquake rattling the Northeast. A 3.8 magnitude quake centered off the coast of Maine felt from Portland to Boston, the strongest to hit the region since a 4.8 struck New Jersey last April. When we come back here tonight, news of a deadly accident on the tarmac. An airline worker has been struck and killed. And the Super Bowl showdown set, the images already you likely haven't seen. To the index, authorities investigating a deadly accident on the tarmac at the Charlotte Douglas Airport in North Carolina. American Airlines tonight says an employee was struck and killed by a vehicle on the ramp right near the airline gates. When we come back here tonight, the Super Bowl showdown set, the images already tonight.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Chewy.
Before we go tonight, the stage is now set for the Super Bowl, the rematch, the Chiefs and the Eagles. Kansas City, of course, hopes to be the first team ever to win 3 Super Bowls in a row. The Eagles say not so fast. Philly fans celebrating, of course. The Eagles' Saquon Barkley with his daughter Jada amid all the confetti. Taylor Swift on the field to celebrate with Travis Kelce and the Chiefs. The rematch now on. I'm David Muir. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.